What is the utility of studying liberal arts, where science and technology can provide a panacea for all problems in society, including poverty, hunger, and malnutrition? I could guess where he was coming from. He was, of course, at a transition between youthful success and a dream of imminent migration to a land of dreams in the West. I did not know how he understood. Nevertheless, I tried to explain that one can work in any field of knowledge. Still, it may prove worthless unless that knowledge is relevant to human beings' broader socio-economic and cultural existence in a particular society. I also try to convey that at its most advanced level, any discipline of knowledge, including science and technology, also sports, has only one goal: unraveling the truth as it exists in the real world. Besides that, the rest of our endeavors are building skills and being a productive unit of a global economy. Many years later, I had an opportunity to visit the MIT campus in Cambridge, Massachusetts. As I walked around the corridor, I saw a series of posters on Shakespearean literature. One of them was about a talk on why literature. Others were on Shakespeare's tragedies and comedies. As we walked, I murmured with amusement, "Ha! Shakespeare is also present at MIT." It was Shakespeare's Macbeth that had lamented, "Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing." My companion, a faculty and administrator at MIT, overheard and quickly responded, "Shakespeare and more broadly liberal arts has become a necessity for MIT students." I wondered why. He explained that as young minds deal with numbers and scientific abstractions, they get cut off from the social reality, and it is crucial to make them aware of their surroundings. With a chuckle, he said, "You will be surprised that many even do not know how to interact with the opposite gender." MIT has taken it seriously and made it mandatory for every undergraduate student to have courses on liberal arts before they delve into serious research in technology and innovation. A global institution like MIT needs to produce great minds who are also responsible players of the wider society. As I bought a metallic cricket, that insect, from the MIT science showroom for my son to appraise how science is changing our creative world, I could see that the toy is an exact reproduction of a cricket, but without life. And it was the life that mattered. We may spend a whole life discussing string theories, the origin of the universe, putting a human being on distant planet, traveling to outer space commercially, creating a life without revealing a parent's identity, letting robots be our servants. Still, all those knowledge and expertise will make little sense if we are not conscious contributors to our harmonious existence in nature. In our tradition of knowledge spanning over 3,000 years, the Indian philosophical minds have consistently argued on this issue. We have considered Gyan or wisdom as the ultimate reality. Our body of understanding has been enriched by arguments, counter arguments, and commentaries. thesis, antithesis, and synthesis cycles. Ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti, says Upanishad. One of the 6 dominant philosophies is Sunyavad, very similar to the scientific theory of nothingness, including the duality of matter and antimatter. I don't know whether you have heard Tika Govinda Chandra on a kendra. Kendra is a single string local instrument in Odisha or eastern India used by traveling mendicants. It goes like this. And the Tika Govinda Chandra initial opening line says, Bhajukina Rama Namare Rajana, Bhajukina Rama Nama, Bhajin Aparile Kola Chandra Mare Bandhine Bokalajama. Sehi Kalajama Bodani Daruna, Nojana Dukha Sukha, Bachinebo Concha, Rokiva Pakala, Debaki, Daruna Dukkare Rajana, Bhajukina Ramanam. It talks about the duality of life and death. Being everything and nothing, full and empty. It brings home the point that the creation begins out of nothingness and ends in nothingness. And so, what is the worth of life to a Sunyavadi is very simple. Blind poet Bhima Bhoi answered, Mo jivana pache narke padithau, jagata uddhare ho. Let the collective interest be protected, even at the cost of my own pain. One may be tempted to discard such an approach to knowledge as metaphysics. But what I have observed over the years of my Mandarin existence in different parts of the world, spanning the East and the West, is that many enlightened minds in science are engaged in finding logical explanations to the mysteries of the universe by using quantum physics. Still, humanity is yet to identify explicit attributes of what is wisdom or knowledge. Knowledge has no notion of compartmental disciplines like science, art, medicine, law, management, sports. It is a whole, unbound, and infinite. Nevertheless, for the effective use of energy or quanta or photons out there in the universe for global goods, we have created disciplines and the institutions of skill building. Therefore, our responsibility is to master those skills and be valuable contributors to overall social growth and well-being. In this context, it is fascinating to investigate the ideas of one of the most outstanding leaders of human history, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Gandhi's thoughts were unique because his reading of human minds and hearts was unique. Never conceptualized and experimented with before. Before his advent, no civilization or society had thought of victory or defeat without war and conflict, peace without bloodshed, and non-violent resistance as an unbeatable instrument to fight brute force. To Gandhiji, therefore, character building is the central objective of all knowledge. Every philosophy or theory of social engineering must build on certain fundamental assumptions. For example, Plato defined social reality as a constant state of flux. The state was a republic with 3 categories of citizens, namely artisans, auxiliaries, and philosopher kings with different capacities of appetite, spirit, and reason. For Aristotle, the state was a community of persons with a specific purpose, and the state was the highest of all communities with a supreme goal. Similarly, for Hobbes, the state of nature was the war of every man against every man, and human existence in this state of nature was solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. However, this state of insecurity ends when the individuals agree in a social contract to relinquish part of their natural rights to a higher civil authority or leviathan. For Locke, by contrast, the state of nature was characterized by the absence of government, but not by the lack of mutual obligation. Locke believed that individuals were naturally endowed with the rights to life, liberty, and property, and that the state of nature could be relatively peaceful. Individuals, nevertheless, agreed to form an institution for impartial arbitration of their differences and disputes. For Rousseau, the state of nature was a morally neutral and peaceful condition in which individuals act according to their basic instincts. However, this instinct is tempered by the equally innate sense of compassion, and individuals become increasingly civilized and interdependent. Marxism, one of the dominant theories of social engineering, assumes that human nature is a social construct determined by the economic forces of production and private property. Therefore, there is a need for the world's workers to unite to bring about material changes to influence human nature. In our epic Mahabharata, the nature is a blend of basic human instincts of selfishness and moral blindness. While the Kauravas represent the former, Dhritarashtra epitomizes the latter. There is a need, therefore, to maintain social order, and hence Krishna's statement in the Gita, Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya Glanir Bhavatu Bharata Abhyuthanam Adharmasya, and the way Dharma Sansthapanarthaya Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. All of you know that. That what is called Dharma in Gita is essentially that social order. Contrary to the above theories of social engineering, Gandhiji discards that man is inherently evil. He believed that the source of evil was in his ego and his insatiable greed for material possessions. He argued that no intellect could help one eliminate evil unless one dissociates oneself from material attachment. And the quest for truth in a non-violent manner helps one attain that detachment and realize the goodness within. Gandhi was the first political thinker who practiced non-violence as an effective movement against crude power, brutality, and violence. Academics in many parts of the world are studying his theoretical underpinning and methodology of his thought. For Gandhiji, ahimsa is more than a mere absence of himsa. It encompasses both thought and action. It implies no harm and does not inflict pain on a fellow animate. The concept of non-violence pervades all faiths. It is not specific to Hinduism only. It is the primary tenet of any minor or significant faith in the world, including Christianity, Islam, Sikhism, Judaism, Buddhism, and Jainism. Gandhiji also believed that non-violence is not for the coward, but the brave. It is a resistance against the evil deeds, but not the evildoers. Martin Luther King Jr. extended it further when he said that non-violence is not a struggle against bodies, but a system of oppression. Non-violence is also not pacifism, but an action-oriented strategy for the people's movement. Gandhian construct is built on two fundamentals: the socio-political foundation of Satyagraha, desire for truth, and economic foundation of Swadeshi, or self-sufficiency. For Gandhi, Satyagraha can be attained by loving the services of all, and Swadeshi as a way of life can provide the necessary sustenance from local to a global level. His concept of self-sufficiency can be interpreted today not as an inward-looking approach, but contributing responsibly for universal growth. Gandhi believed that each economic unit at the grassroots must strive to satisfy its day-to-day requirement by harnessing the local strength while protecting its environment and ecosystem. It is the human need that is central and not human greed. Human history is replete with violence, intolerance, and the fight for subordination and subjugation. It continues even today. In starts, it starts at the individual level and spreads to community, cultural, and social groups, eventually becoming a national or international issue to be addressed by the government of the day or the geopolitics of the time. In the current global environment, let me touch upon the international relevance of the Gandhian paradigm in two specific spheres, namely social justice and global peace. For Gandhi, social justice will mean the global pursuit of social justice, social fairness, and equitable distribution of resources, striving for equity and fairness, and with particular regard for the marginalized and vulnerable. Similarly, global peace will mean the absence of conflict and war and the abolition of all forms of tyranny. Gandhi made no distinction between just and unjust wars. For him, war could never be a legitimate means of achieving anything permanent. There is no place for the glorification of brute force, and an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. He also understood that causes of conflicts are rooted in inequality, racism, hierarchy, and exploitation, which must be fought. Academics do wonder about the potential of Gandhism to be a dominant theory of conducting statecraft. One of the apprehensions is that non-violent philosophy lacks a cutting-edge tool to dismantle the existing dominant ideologies. However, major struggles of the 20th century, such as the Indian independence movement, the civil liberties movement in the United States, the movement led by Nelson Mandela in South Africa, and the present Black Lives Matters movement demonstrate that it could serve a vital role in offering alternative solutions for both contemporary and future global challenges. A few academics also highlight deficiencies in Gandhiji's theoretical construct based on his early writings. However, the beauty of the Gandhian theory building approach is that Gandhi never considered what he wrote as a young man to be accepted as the gospel truth. For him, his thoughts were ever evolving and his constant effort was consistent with the fundamentals of his construct, which are truth and nonviolence. Gandhi believed that irrespective of your expertise and profession, what mattered most was a human character built on truth and nonviolence. In one's urge for success, one must not ignore the truth. One must also not forget that every action has equal and opposite reactions. Einstein never imagined that his E is equal to mc square would give birth to atom bombs, cost lives, cripple generations, and drag the world into perpetual instability. Let me conclude with a quote from the German Swiss laureate Hermann Hesse's book. In his book, The Journey to the East, he writes, and I quote, He who wishes to live long must serve, but he who wishes to rule does not live long. Unquote. And it is up to you, my friends, to decide whether you want to serve or rule. All the best. Thank you. I am now open to any questions or answers and discussion. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Actually, if you can continue for a few minutes, or we should open the question and answer session, interaction.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Hello.
Yes, please introduce yourself, sir, and ask.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. This is Brahmadev Patnaik, Dean of the Veterinary School, the new veterinary school of SOA.
Okay.
And basically, I'm a virologist with a lot of interest on the viruses of animals and human beings and zoonosis. And here, it was excellent talk on Gandhian philosophy by His Excellency. I am Odia by birth here. And when I speak of Gandhiji, it reminds me always of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, who is again on a domicile by what a profession or whatever. And it is only Subhash Chandra Bose who adored Gandhiji as Mahatma. The title of Mahatma was adored to Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi by none other than another Odia by domicile. So besides this, I have a small query from His Excellency. Okay, in the current context in India and elsewhere, is it so that Gandhiji taught us how to do mass protest? Did Gandhiji teach us how to organize mass protest against whatever policies? Did he teach us this? What is your opinion about it?
No, I see.
I hope I could make the query clear to you, sir.
I got
mass protests have been very common. Did our father of nation taught us how to organize?
Let me
protest in mass.
Yeah, let me respond. One, you mentioned about Subhash Bose. I actually passed out from the school where he passed out, so I have a very emotional connect with Netaji, and only a great leader like Netaji can actually recognize another great leader. Or let me put it this way, that one great mind actually could recognize the other great mind, and this is what it is. There is in our tradition over centuries, our strength is we have always recognized the best in whatever tradition. We don't believe in only one philosophy or one. That's why we have different strands of thinking. And that is why we say, the truth could be one, but there are various ways to actually interpret and reach what truth is.
Right.
So I think that is a basic strength of Indian civilization. Coming back to mass protest, I must also. It's a question of actually what kind of a state you want. I approach it from a very political science, discipline. What kind of a state you want? State meaning it's not about province. It's state meaning is a very political science term. The way Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, and all those Western philosophers had said, and not only even Kautilya in our own tradition, and in Ramayana and Mahabharata also, you always would talk about what is Rajadharma, what is Rajniti. There's a whole tradition, and in Mahabharata, Krishna has solution for everything. and what some of the things are, whether it is ethical or not ethical, it is. So that's a different issue. We can go on this. But once you decide what kind of a state you want, and the Constitution of India has been designed in that way, that there are fundamental rights, there are other things in that Constitution, and the preamble very clearly stipulates the spirit of this nation. Then anyone, it is up to, there are different arms of governance, the executive, the judiciary, the legislative, and there is a clear separation of power. Once you did that, I think ideally nobody has the right to interpret and fiddle with that spirit. The day you start doing it, or any wing of that system that you have built has started doing it, then you will have not only reaction, which is positive, we will also have reaction which are negatives. So as people of India, I must say, I think democracy is the responsibility of the people. And democracy is not a perfect system. No system in the world, no system of governance is actually perfect. We would prefer to have something ideal, but which is only a construct. We work towards it. But I think the responsibility of people of India is to realize what kind of a state they want, what kind and how much liberty they want to cede to the state, so that their own fundamental rights are actually protected. That is between individual and the state. So there are interest groups in between. Now, when the majority or people or those who are actually decisive factor of a system of state and individual, they get swayed by extraneous elements and interests, you have a problem. So it is for every individual in India, any state, to really be acutely aware what is his fundamental rights are. That is how you create state. That I surrender part of my rights as individual, so that you will give me security. I have surrendered, but if you don't give me security, then why did I surrender? From the individual point of view. But state, which is always in the game of power, would try to get more power. That's a natural tendency of state. So there is a constant, let's say, interaction, and there is a constant to and fro between state and individual, and then institutions. And it is the response, at the end of the day, it is the responsibility of each individual as a citizen of a state to protect his own interest, which is, of course, now we have enshrined in a text, in a book called the Constitution of India. Right. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you so much for the enlightenment.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, thank you, Dean Veterinary Science also. So any other questions, please? Actually, we have got a lot of time for interactions. So actually we should, Gandhiji is much misunderstood persons in India. Maybe Gandhiji is being adored throughout the world. But unfortunately, in this country, we have got different notions about Mahatma Gandhi. So kindly, I will also ask you a question, His Excellency. So why Gandhiji is not being taught or not being understood in the right spirit in this country of his birth? Can you throw some light on it?
No, I think there are, I to some extent, I agree with you. And this is not about Gandhiji. And this is about the whole culture of scholarship that we have in India. When we talk of culture of scholarship in India, we always go back to 5,000 years of history. And our rishis and munis and our Vedas and Upanishads and our Puranas and all these things have said this and this. It's like in Odia, there is a time, Jaha nahi Bharate, what was that?
Jaha nahi jagate, jaha nahi bharate, taha nahi jagate.
Jaha nahi Bharate, taha nahi jagate. This shows where we are. It cannot be that Jaha nahi Bharat, taha nahi jagat. Bharat is not the world.
Yes.
The word Bharat is, India is part of the earth. And if you take as, countries and nation states, and there are more than 194 countries in the whole world. Every small, medium and big countries have their own history, own culture, they have their own issues, and they have their own developmental paradigm. So we cannot say that it's a general culture in India among ourselves that we are the biggest, we are the only civilization of the world, we are the only source of knowledge, our culture is the best culture in the world. Look, we make world a co-terminus with the geographical territory of India, as if, and not only India, if you go to smaller, you go to provinces and various languages has various proverbs, you will hear that as if, for example, I'm saying, as if you're talking in Odisha, whatever is not happening in Odisha or whatever is happening in Odisha, that is the national problem or that is the international problem. So if I succeeded in Odisha, I think that I have actually succeeded in the whole world. So there is a fundamental problem in our present day recognition that we are only one in the whole world. We are not the world. The day we recognize that, we in our mind say that we are only one out of the many, I think then your mind opens to, yes, there are various people in the various part of the world who have done extremely good work. And Gandhiji stands tall, let's say, among people like Simon Bolivar. Now, how many of India will say that the whole Latin American society has been deeply influenced by Simon Bolivar? So when you talk about Gandhi, the person who is from Latin America, he will also talk about, he will relate from what Simon Bolivar did, because Simon Bolivar made a difference to his existence. So unless Marx is Marx, because the whole world have studied, the whole world has not made Marx a god. What the whole world has done, institutions have done, is they have taken that ideology, put in the whole theoretical construct, and tried to experiment, examine in different situations and different geography. So unless Indians, academics, researchers actually get into that kind of seriousness to study Gandhian philosophy, deifying Gandhi doesn't help Gandhi. You can say Bhagavan Gandhi, you can put a statue and be happy with this whole, you can put a incense stick and say, you are my God. It doesn't help. It doesn't give permanency. What gives permanence, paramount significance is his ideas and his thoughts, which can be studied, commented, examined, and then the whole intellectual community of the whole world. He is we say non-violence, but when you come out of India and tell an international audience or a foreign audience that this is a man who actually thought that non-violence could be used as an instrument against brute force at a time when the whole world was coming out of two major world wars. And if you see human history in the last 3,000 years, war, instability, fight was actually the normal existence of human being. We in India have written Mahabharata. Think of it. The Roman civilization, the Greeks, the Mesopotamians, everybody has gone through war. So the whole existence, the natural course of existence of human being was actually conflict and war. And there is a person who came and thought and really gave an instrument to the masses that non-violence can be, which is completely different. Don't think now. Think of, when he started this. World was going through wars. And during that time, this is a person who said, no, it's not violence, but non-violence will be an effective tool or instrument of public mobilization and fight against brute force. Isn't it amazing? It is a departure from what human history was till early 20th century. And after that, advent of Mahatma Gandhi. I think unless we put Indians, we understand this, and we Indians take really serious interest in Gandhian philosophy and in ideology and his method, his whole, political construct, to serious academic research in universities in India and outside India, you will not get the kind of presence of Gandhi in universities in India and outside, like the others who are getting.
Thank you, sir. Very rightly told that Gandhi is not an object of ideal curiosity. Gandhi demands serious scholastic approach in order to understand Gandhian ways of life and Gandhian philosophy. So, which must be a part of one's life. One cannot lead a dual life, telling Gandhian philosophy and practicing it just opposite to or contradictory to what Gandhi teaches. So, what is the most important aspect of Gandhi, as I have understood little, that whatever Gandhi was preaching, whatever Gandhiji was practicing, or what all he has lived, that is what he has preached, and that is probably there was no space between the preaching and the practicing of Mahatma Gandhi. That's why he is Mahatma. So I will take a few more questions, a couple of questions more. Anybody from the audience? Students, you can ask one or two questions, because this is a rare opportunity. So please interact with His Excellency. So this is a rare opportunity for all of you. Please, anybody, please introduce yourself and ask questions. Asavanta Pradhan. Yes. Yes, you are not audible, Josavanta. Please, you can switch on your video camera and you can ask your question. It is not audible, please. So, anybody?
Yes, sir. This is Brahmadev, Dean of the Veterinary School.
Yeah.
So I have one query from His Excellency. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. The non-violence has been a very, very powerful tool that Gandhiji taught us. Many countries, they followed it, including in North America.
Yeah.
So my query is there to you, sir. Non-violence could be a very powerful tool within a country, within a state. But when you talk of interstate relationship, inter-country relationship, there, what is the question for non-violence?
No, that is what
Because
Gandhi
it
had
would be an
interstate.
in-country powerful tool, but between two states, between two countries, international relationships, non-violence,
Yeah.
has it
Yeah.
a place to play its role?
Yeah. So that is what he said, that there is nothing called just war. You know, when you do interstate relationship, there are countries or states who will say that
Say,
limited
sir, our
warfare is,
neighbors, our immediate neighbors, we will not take any neighbors, or a distant neighbor, whatever, our own India's neighbors, maybe very close, maybe a few thousand miles away.
no, it can
So
see, it can
in
happen
that, how it is relevant, non-violence.
in that is what he said, that there is no place in his paradigm for any kind of conflict or war. He said you cannot justify war for or conflict for a permanent solution, that by waging a war or by waging a conflict I'll actually bring some peace.
Right,
It doesn't happen.
right,
That's what he's saying.
right,
But he's also saying fundamentally you must understand, and the global community, as a global community, each state must understand what is the fundamental problem source of this conflict, what can actually create the environment for conflict and war, and that needs to be addressed. So it's a that is why I'm saying that it is not easy. I have always maintained that it looks the way we Indians actually see non-violence. Non-violence is practiced by us, our children, and
right,
everybody every day in, day out.
right,
For us, it's not, and it has become such a tool that everybody else is also using it without actually knowing that Gandhi was the first one who introduced
right,
how
sir.
it should be done. So,
Yes, sir.
but then all this is not easy to practice. I give a very simple example. When a child comes to his father or mother, that today I don't feel like going to school.
Right,
The first thing the father or mother will say, why don't you want to go to school? Going to school is your duty. Then the argument goes on, and at some point of time, the parent will think that I'll give you a slap.
right,
Isn't
sir.
it?
Right,
But the parent actually, if you are Gandhian, if you believe in Gandhian ideology and you have imbibed with yourself, you will actually try to find out and try to understand what the child is actually trying to communicate.
right,
Maybe he is not communicating, or she is not communicating in the language that you normally are used to. But he or she has something to communicate. That's why she is coming to you and saying,
right,
today I don't feel like going to school. There must be something behind it.
right,
And if you practice non-violence, instead of I'll give you a slap, what you do is sit and communicate with the child and find out what is the state of mind that he is going through, why he doesn't want to go, and find a solution. It's not easy. Giving a slap is a 2-second work. You're actually spending 5 minutes, no argument, and he's crying and going back to his room and saying, I'm going to school. Otherwise,
right, sir.
but to do a Gandhian method is actually a very painstaking self-realization.
Difficult.
It's difficult.
Difficult.
So it's not, but that it is actually difficult and not easy to practice. We as Indians, we as academics, we as political leaders, we as community leaders must tell somebody who doesn't belong to this tradition.
Right, right.
We take
Very
it for
true.
granted.
Very true.
There is a need to say that it looks very simple, but it is not simple. It's very difficult because you belong to a tradition where war is a permanent state of nature. You won't understand how these things happen. So I think there is a need there is a need for each of us who are part of that tradition to understand first how difficult
Right.
it is, and then communicate to others that it's actually difficult. It's not easy.
Actually, His Excellency is very right. Gandhiji has also told in many quotes and in many areas that when a choice will be given between cowardice and violence, I will choose violence. So it is not easy actually, unless you experience the Gandhian ideals and Gandhian experience. It is not a mental homework kind of thing. So what he has told is very, very right actually. It is very difficult. Somebody has to be bravest in order to practice non-violence and truth. One can be a coward, can be violent, but unless one is a hero, truly hero in his soul and all these things, he cannot be non-violent and he cannot be truthful. That is very, very right. You have pointed out a very right thing. It is extremely difficult. It is very easy to be violent. It is very easy to be angry. It is very easy to wield arms, but it is not very easy to face your adversary with non-violence and truth, the strength of your soul. So it's a really very remarkable thing. Actually, this discussion will continue. Gandhi is such a transcendental figure and he transcends boundaries of the country. So if there are no questions, I request one of our Uganda student, John Bravo Murungi, to accord the official vote of thanks. Bravo, are you there? Bravo. John Bravo?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please accord your vote of thanks.
Yes, sir.
Please switch on your video camera.
It's very,
Okay,
very
sure.
interesting. Very, very interesting, sir.
Bravo, can you switch on your video camera? So His Excellency will also see you.
Yes, is my camera on, sir? I think
Your video is not coming out.
what about now, sir?
No, we are not seeing you. It would have been better if you could have switched on your video camera.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Just 1 minute. I think there is an issue with my system.
So Gandhi is
Maybe Gandhiji wants the session to continue.
Yes. Bravo.
Maybe
Yes,
wishes
Bravo.
that it should continue more
Yes. Bravo.
by
Please.
His Excellency. Yeah.
Bravo, please continue. Unmute yourself. Bravo, please unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Am I audible now?
Now you are audible. Please continue.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for giving me this great opportunity. It's my greatest pleasure to accord the official vote of thanks at today's SOA fortnightly academic lecture. And I've learned a lot from today's talk, and I've actually been so much inspired. And as well as a student, the law of service has been clearly understood to me, where His Excellency has shared a quote that he who wishes to live long must serve, and he who wishes to rule does not live. The statue of Mahatma Gandhi adores the bank of River Nile in Jinja, Uganda, where I come from. And his
I
teachings.
visited Uganda.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, His Excellency.
2015, I had gone to Uganda. Yeah.
Okay, it's a pleasure. A pleasure. His teachings of truth and non-violence are surely ageless, and I presume unless we adopt these tenets, we cannot surely lead a sustainable life on this planet Earth. And it's on henceforth at this very moment, I'm so thankful to His Excellency Sri Arun Kumar Sahu, the Indian High Commissioner to Trinidad and Tobago. Thanks to our audience and also the people from all over the world for attending and watching this webinar on the Gandhi we all must know. It's once again a great pleasure and an honor to have your talk. I've really been so inspired, and I promise to go on and share with my colleagues. And when I get back to my country, I'll definitely have to share what I've learned today. Thank you so much. Thank you, His Excellency.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you. Namaskar. to
Thank
all
you,
of
sir.
you. Thank you very much. Thank you
Stay
very
safe. Stay happy.
much. The meeting is over.